Alright, here we go. So, this is Errantsquire again. Here we go. And this week we're going to be talking about doing some deck building. We'll go over a Reddit thread real quick. We'll talk about what some people are looking at for the promos that people are trying to resell on eBay. Also, we had a card release from Reddit, or I'm sorry, from the main people down there at Cryptozoic. And hello, Lonarth. Yay, I have a viewer. Awesome. You're welcome to, viewers are welcome to ask me questions while I'm doing this, and hopefully as long as I look over at this screen, I'll be able to answer your questions. We're going to be going over two decks. Yesterday, I talked about a deck for doing some ramp, one of my favorite strategies. It's going to be a lot different in Hex than it is in other typical TCGs. And then also we're going to do, we're also going to go ahead and live, I'm going to go ahead and make a deck up using, here we go. We're going to make a deck up live using the TCG browser. I'm going to go ahead and make up the, what I would call Red White Humans, but it should actually be called Ruby Diamond Inspire deck. That's what we'll be making up tonight. So we'll just go over the deck from yesterday and go ahead and make these cards as big as possible. F11 this. So starting off, so again, like yesterday, the first thing I want to look at when I'm making a ramp deck is what I'm going to be ramping into. It needs to be worthwhile for me to ramp into a card, and in order to really make it well worth the you know, figuring out the curve and all that stuff. The curve on this isn't that great. I'm especially not happy with what I had to do in my 2-point range, the cards I had to have in there. But overall, it shouldn't be too bad. Some, you know, if you've played Magic or anything like that, one of the biggest ramp decks in that's viable in Modern is the Tron deck, which basically uses 3 different resource cards to make 7 mana or 7 resources in order to play these large cards. And then once you have those out, one of them produces 3, the other 2 produce 2. Once you have those out, you can cast these huge battle cruiser cards that cost like 11, 12, and 15 resources. So they basically take over the game by themselves. I'm really not a fan of battlecruiser type cards per se. I do like large, big Titan type cards. If you remember the Titan cycle from Magic, I was really happy with some of those. So starting off here, Battle Beetle was a really big key card for this deck for me. Let's see if I can make this. I can actually zoom in on it here. Yeah, look at that, make it real big. So Battle Beetle was a huge card for me with this deck. I mean, it's socketable, so what I did was I socketed this with the Fighting Gem. It's, yeah, down here. Yeah, so when it enters play, let me move it over here so you can see this. So when it enters play, and you still can't see it, wow, so move it all the way up here. When it enters play, not that one, the Fighting one. Where's the Fighting one? That's... No, I don't want that one. Where is it? I thought I had the, they had the Fighting one. Opposing troop gets -X, whereas... Oh, okay, so yeah, this is... The way it has it described is funny. It doesn't say fight, but basically, you can deal X damage to a troop. It says that it gets -X, which is reducing its power and toughness, which... is usually a lot different than actually fighting. Fighting deals damage, whereas this is going to be -X, so if something was indestructible in Magic terms, which isn't really a thing in Hex right now, indestructible creatures, you can reduce their toughness to 0, and when you do that, they, what is it called, state-based effects take effect at the outside of the stack, and the creature will die no matter what, even though it's indestructible, because the toughness checks and it's 0. Whereas with an indestructible creature, when it gets dealt damage, if it's not enough, even if it's lethal damage, it just doesn't die because it doesn't really take the damage. I believe, if I remember right. Anyways, I'll probably get corrected on that later. Right, Green Titan. Yeah, it's very much a Green Titan. Very much like a Primeval Titan to me, this guy. And he flies, which is ridiculous. Because there's no way you're not going to have 3 resources to give this guy flight. So he'll be flying most of the time, if not all the time. Shards of Fate in any 2-color deck is going to be obligatory. I went with Blood and Wild for this one, or Green and Black for people that are just getting into Hex. Here's the champion that I chose on this. 8 charges may seem like a lot. He's really not going to be so much a champion that's going to keep you in the game, I'd say, as he's going to push you over the top towards the the end of the game. But putting in this giant, the Mammoth Squirrel Titan is this guy, and it's just a really big 6/6 with Crush, and Crush is basically trample. He has a cost of 7. If he were, and again, putting this token into the graveyard, if there's a way to recursion things back, you could pull your tokens back in this game. Tokens are going to be very interesting because if you bounce them in this game, they're going to go most likely to your opponent's hand, and so that's going to add another dimension to this game. Whereas in in Magic, when you bounce a token, it basically removes itself from existence because there's nowhere for it to go. There's no other zone for it to go into. Zarlok's the Broodlord. This one you might take up to 3 or 4. He's going to take care of a lot of those quicker cards at the low end of the totem pole there. Cost of 3 or less. That's going to take care of hopefully a lot of that stuff and give you a positive 2-for-1 trade. 2 being like he's coming into play, so that's 1. You're removing an opponent's creature. So I guess it's kind of a 1-for-1, but you still have a creature in play, so I guess that would be the second one. So it is a 2-for-1 from my standpoint. Surge Mechanism, I have this. I was told yesterday on the cast that they would have gone with just pulled these from the deck completely and actually pulled another Hex engine instead. So 4 of these and 2 of these. The difference is that this is immediately accessible, where it's going to create 2 temporary resources. As soon as it comes into play, it doesn't have any type of summoning sickness, or you can't exhaust it when it comes into play. All artifacts are that way. So they kept that, whereas this one is, and this one's going to take a lot more time to build up more momentum. So there's some credence to that. I liked having this one because I love having a good curve in my deck, and so that 4-point difference is the difference between having a high. I mean, I guess there's room for it here, but having the 3-point card in my hand and being able to play a spell as opposed to maybe not being able to play that 4-point spell is kind of a big deal to me. So I guess it depends. It's going to take some tinkering, and you're going to need to actually play the deck to get a good feel for what is right for you. The deck I really disliked having to put in here, this is basically a cantrip that's going to chump block for you in this deck, and if you have to, we have some sweeps in the board. Sweeps are basically things that are going to destroy the entire all the creatures that are in play. The Sensei of the Milky Eye, if you have to sweep him out, it's not really a big deal because he basically did his job as soon as he hits the board state. He sat there, he blocked for you, and it'll give you an extra turn to hopefully play that sweep and hang on so that you can get the most value out of the sweep. And again, he's going to cantrip, which just simply means as soon as he comes into play, he's going to draw you another card. So he's really not a negative card in play, which is another way of looking at card advantage. Adaptable Infusion Device, I was told that this one yesterday they didn't really see a lot of room for it in the deck, and +4 to sacrifice a card, draw a card. It's not the greatest. Yeah, they're probably right, but it is a 1-drop. I like having something in this 1-drop range. I only have 4. I mean, something I can do on turn 1 is important to me, so maybe take it down to 2 or 1, something like that. The other big thing I'm looking at with this deck is that right now the only thing that's dual color is this Shards of Fate, and I understand what they were saying yesterday. With, I don't have that many dual resources, but I really dislike having to play only 4 dual resources in a deck. I'd rather play more than so this gives me 8 dual resources in the deck and takes my resource total technically. I mean, I guess it's just charging my champion, which also helps me get to those 8 charges on this guy. Also, you can sacrifice it in response to draw a card, so you can do it at the end of your opponent's turn. and the 4 is really like less consequential to me. I mean, the cost of 4 to draw a card really, I mean, it seems like this is just screaming to me, if I'm going to go anywhere, it's going to be in a deck like this anyways. Jadim is pretty automatic. You could probably take this up to 3. I don't think I personally like going up more than 3 on any unique creatures. Again, unique creatures, the way they're going to work is just like in Magic. If you have 2 of them in play, well, if your opponent has one and you have one, hopefully, I'm hoping that it's not going to destroy both, that they'll go ahead and move forward. But I think right now that is the way it's going to play. So if you've been paying attention to Magic at all right now with unique creatures, the way it used to work, or with legendary creatures, because there were personas and you couldn't have 2 of the same personas in play at the same time. If your opponent plays a legendary creature and you have a legendary creature in play, it simply killed both of them. And the same was for planeswalkers and things like that. Now, if I have a legendary creature in play and I play another one from my hand, I simply choose one under the new rules, and the other one dies, and the first one, the one I choose, stays in play. And my opponent has a legendary zone on his side of the board, so if he has a legendary in play and I have a legendary in play, no problem, no harm, no foul. That's the new legendary rules for Magic that they've moved forward to, because they're trying to depreciate the value of planeswalkers that are like these mythic rares, so that people will only want to play like 3 of them in their deck, and that has somewhat started to happen in Modern and in Standard. Chlorophylla is our rampant growth for the deck. It's ridiculous rampant growth, because it's giving us 2 resources, and they are they don't generate their temporary resources, so they're 0-1, which, you know, 1-1 is the typical resource. 0-1 means it's going to put more resources that we can generate on the following turn, and a 1-0 is a temporary resource just for this turn. But basically, same thing. Rampant growth lands into play tapped. This is going to basically put resources into play that we can't use this turn, which is virtually tapped. So those are also going to charge our champion. So this is huge, because, you know, getting on turn 3, we've already got 3 charges on our champion. We're going to throw 2 more, and then turn 4 we'll put another one. So now we've got 6 charges on our champion, and we only need 8. So if we play another one on turn 4, another Chlorophylla on turn 5, we can use this guy's charge power and put that huge mammoth squirrel in play and start either blocking to start stabilizing the game state, or doing something like that. It depends on how many little dudes our opponent has in play. They might just decide to start pushing through damage anyways, because they know the sweep's coming. Chaos Key, I went up to a 1 of. I had 4 in the sideboard, which we'll be going over later, and so we put 1 as a kind of a catch-all in the main board. It's going to be really easy to cast this with the amount of ramp that we have. It is a nice 2-drop, so it does kind of help me on the curve as well, having something to do on turn 2. Vampire King was another one where we replaced the Witch from yesterday, is what we talked about, and so I went ahead and put him in here, and he actually adds to the overall flavor of the deck, because he has flight, and we have a lot of things. All of our big dudes really, they have flight, which gives them that evasion to push through that damage that we really need. Also, when he has the added bonus of, if we kill stuff, it makes more vampires. Again, a couple, what was it, 2 weeks ago, I made the mistake of thinking it turned things into vampires. No, when you kill them, it kills them, and you get these nice 2/2 flying vampires, which, again, more flying stuff, more evasion in a stompy deck. The name of the deck, I named it, was Flying Ramp Stompy. So, you know, we're to ramp up into these giant flying creatures and then stomp our opponent's face in. Murder is obligatory at this point. You know, we're going to try to get positive action out of that. Life Siphon is a 1-of that I included in here. You may choose not to. I like it as a game ender. It's a 1-of. It's really like we talked about yesterday. It's not going to really affect the board state very much. You could also play with Burn to the Ground, which is it's virtually the same thing. Again, one of the interesting things about all these X cards is because of the way that Hex works, we only need to have a threshold in play in order to play these X cards, so we get more value out of them. Whereas in Magic, you had to pay the 1 mana and then you got X. Whereas with this one, all I have to do is have 2 threshold in play, and it's all gravy. Every resource I can throw at this thing, I'm going to get it back. I'm going to get that towards X. So if I have 17 resources in play, I can deal 17 damage, gain 17 life, and if my opponent's not dead, you know, it might take them another turn or 2 to kill me. But hopefully not. Obligatory extinction. We really aren't going to be doing a lot of stuff on the low end, and like we talked about, our Sensei of the Milky Eye is going to not really be a problem if we sweep him out. You know, it's a lot of that low end stuff. We're just basically trying to gain more card advantage with this card. I went down to 3 of them. You could just stick with 4, you know, depending on what you feel like you know, you're comfortable with. It's going to be really interesting because there's not really going to be a local shop metagame when we're talking about Hex. There's going to be maybe a daily metagame of people that come on certain days, maybe, that you start seeing at your possibly your level of play. But more than that, I mean, when you go into your local shop, if you're playing Magic or any other physical card game, you know certain people in there are going to be doing certain things, or like you'll see that a lot of people are playing aggro, and so then in that case you would go up to 4. And going back to the metagame, Shaggy did a great job earlier this week talking about the metagame. So I encourage you to go to his channel, Shaggy TV, which you can find down in the comments on my Twitch TV. So moving on, again, the shards. I went with 12 shards and then 10 of these, so that gives us 26 resources overall, because we've got the 4 shards of fate and these other shards. And what I did to figure out my curve for the deck is that I counted up the icons. So like this extinction would be 2 icons, and I take that times 3. Now I haven't redone it since the last time I redid the deck, but things didn't change that much. So this would be 6 icons overall, and I count up all the blood icons. I take into account like the curve of the deck as well. That's a different ratio. And then I just basically take those 2 ratios and I look at them, and that kind of gives me an idea of what I should be playing. As far as I know that I want to play 26 land. You could take it down to 25, but I wouldn't recommend it. I would actually consider taking this up to 27 given the nature of Hex. Another thing to think about when we're playing Ramp, and the face of Ramp in Hex is going to be different than when we're playing Magic, because we're not going to be pulling cards out of the deck. So our deck is going to be 60 cards all the time. There's nothing that really deck thins. That's why it's I think it's very important to have some cantrips to kind of move through the deck and get to those big fat cards, because we can sweep our opponent out, but if we never draw those fat cards to push through damage and to end the game, then we still lose a lot of times, and our opponent will probably still be able to put some pressure on us. So that is that deck. We'll move on to the sideboard here real quick. This Eternal Guardian, I'm really not sure if I want him on here. He's kind of obligatory. I mean, prevent all damage, so he's kind of a must-answer card, I guess, in a control setup. I mean, they got to kind of deal with him, but they should be able to. For an aggro setup, you would hope that they would have killed you by the time you got to play him. So I'm really not sure he goes in here at all. But I do have him in here because he's a card that has that 5 toughness, and so he can be answered by murder. You're really never going to block with him because you don't take damage anyways. So I mean, and even if you did, it says, yeah, oh, okay, well, he does take damage. Other troops you control. So I mean, it's going to be a 2-for-1 for Ruby to deal with him too. So he's going to be a house, but at 8 costs, I mean, you really got to play test him to see if how often you're going to be able to actually play him. The nice thing is that he's colorless, so he's going to be pretty easy to play as long as you can get up to that many resources. You don't have to worry about that too much. Some more Zarloks, especially if your opponent's playing a lot of those low-end creatures you need to deal with, so it's just more removal for you. 3 more Chaos Keys, you know, just more catch-all. I mean, this is going to be like playing Oblivion Ring in Magic the Gathering. I mean, it's a little bit slow, but it's one of those cards that just deals with things. things that, you know, it deals with a lot of things, and it's the only thing it's really great at voiding cards, especially those you know, enchantments, which are called what are they called? I forget what they're called right now, but they're basically enchantments, or constants, I believe, or something. Vampire King, we got 2 more of those. I mean, it's pretty much, I kind of just replaced the other guy, the witch, the Grove Witch, with this guy. I still kind of like the Grove Witch. He is kind of random, but I was thinking about it in the 24 hours between the last podcast and this one, and they were saying that most of the time you're going to hit a land with them, and I'm really not so sure about that. I would say it's more often that you're going to hit a spell card than you will hit a land, because most of the time, or a resource, because most of the time people are playing those resources out anyways. Moving on to Omen of Oblivion. This is basically a lobotomy to me. Lobotomy is a card where I can just basically name a card in your deck and just dump that strategy from your deck. So, for instance, versus this deck, someone could simply name one of my big creatures and pull it out of the deck, and it'll just get voided. Or with this, as soon as I play it, it'll get voided instead. Yeah, not too much else to say there. The 4th Extinction right here, pretty obvious. Bone Warrior again. A lot of those quick red decks or other things are going to try to push through damage, those ruby decks. So this guy is going to hopefully absorb some of that damage early on in the game, and then if we sweep, he should turn in that pile of bones, and we have so much resources that that's really not going to make too much of a difference to us. Yeah, can't attack, can't block. He's still there. So if they can dump this pile of bones, if they can kill this thing with another spell, then it's permanently gone and you can't recursion it. But 4 cost is really incidental to us as ramp. That's one of the other things with playing ramp. You have a ton of resources, so playing mana hungry cards, as long as you've got the ramp to get you there, it's really not a big deal to you. Alright, so let's move on. Let's go ahead and start a new deck. And we will create a new deck. So I am using the TCG browser and deck builder. We will call this Diamond and Fire. Or Diamond Ruby, I guess. Ruby Inspire. It's probably a cooler name we could have come up with, but if you have any suggestions, Lord Narth, I am all ears, and we can change the name of this deck. So, again, first thing we're going to do is we're going to think about what it is that we really want to do with this deck. So we're going to set up our filters here, PvP. Come in here, we're going to get no color, so we get all of our artifacts open to us. We want ruby cards and diamond card. Don't have inspiration right now. Alright, well, you have plenty of time to think about it. So the main thing is we will probably want to play a decent amount of humans in here. One of the big cards I loved from playing at the convention was he's coming here. That's the other, yeah, so makers of this site, when I click PvE, please don't show me PvE champions or PvE mercs. That would be nice. There's the Falconer, the Rocket Ranger. Where is he at? So the Totem is definitely a huge one for this deck. That's pretty automatic for me. He's at least a 3 of, if not a 4 of. I'm going to go ahead and just throw 4 right away. A lot of times I'll just throw all the cards that I feel fit the deck first, and then we'll start whittling it down after I look at curve and other things like that. I did look at some of the champions we could run with. You could run with Polka. You could run with this Palamedes, the Righteous. He seems to be pretty good too. He's very much like harkens me to like an Ajani Goldmane kind of an effect, pumping your guys. But what I like, this guy gives him Steadfast, which seems okay. +2/+0 is a little bit more aggressive. I like that. The one I definitely like the best, though, right now is this lady, Elizabeth Stewart, and she's going to be a little bit slow for you, but she's going to give you the option to put more troops on the field. And because we're playing aggro, this is pretty important to me, because if your opponent sweeps you out with Extinction or something like that, this is going to hopefully help you put more pressure on your opponent to answer you. You do have to cast the card. The card goes into your hand, so keep that in mind. It is kind of a late game ability. It's not going to be one that's going to keep you in the game necessarily. It says put it in your hand for 5 charges, not 5, so you can immediately cast it because it costs 5, I believe. I remember we just looked at it. Well, it costs 4, so you still get a resource. You held onto a resource. This guy's obviously a no because we're not going to be playing tons of artifact. Diamond, gaining the life drain. Yeah, it's really not very board affecting type of thing. We might consider it. We will be playing the guy that when we gain life, he gets more power and toughness. Can't block. I like this guy, but we can't block with him. I mean, it's debatable. We'll consider him. We'll go ahead and we'll put him on our list of things. The armor could turn your guy into a 2-for-1. It is a quick action, which is nice. So, I mean, as far as a 2-for-1, if your opponent kills the creature in response to this armor, then they've used 1 card to kill your creature and nullify this card. So I don't especially like that one. With the most troop gains, control this troop. This could be interesting, I guess, because this could take your opponent's stuff away if you gained more, if you were more life gainy. I don't especially like it because I can't count on it all the time. Trial of Faith is garbage for a deck like this. Alright, so here we go. Shield Trainer is pretty solid. He's a 2/2 for 2. He's a solid body, and he's going to give things steadfast. We'll go ahead and throw some of those in here. Sapper's Charge, maybe. That's a maybe one. So we'll throw 2 of those. We'll probably, you know, that's like a maybe card. It's nice because we're in 2 colors and it's going to be easy to remove things. But we'll probably stick with more red removal than anything else. This guy is going to be playable in this deck. Again, he's a solid 2/2. He costs the 2. We're probably mostly going to be in Diamond anyways, so he shouldn't be too hard. We'll probably be more or less splashing into Ruby to get the removal spells. We're not going to be taking Repel at all because our removal in Ruby is so much more efficient. Phoenix Guard Aeronaut could be viable. The 5 is somewhat prohibitive to me. Hex Engine, Heavy Welding Bot, no, obviously not really going to happen. Eternal Youth is not good for us. Arc, we're probably not going to be playing a ton of Orc, so the speed effect's not good, although he is a nice solid 2/2 body. Ember Spire Witch could go on our sideboard, so I'm just going to go ahead and throw her on the sideboard right now. So in order to throw things on the sideboard in this deck editor for everyone, you basically click on this icon here, and this is, I'm going to put it in my main deck, and when it turns gray, I'm going to put it into my sideboard. It's pretty slick. I do like that. So we're definitely going to throw 3 or 4 of these on the sideboard right now. Turbine doesn't do anything for us. This command tower, I do like the command tower because it's an anthem. It's half of an anthem effect. It gives us front end, being the attack power right here. Right, moving forward. It gets power. So only on the attack. It's not a great blocker. It costs 4. Maybe. It's like a maybe card. This guy I don't like because he costs 6, and for 6 there's a lot better effects. This one looks decent, but then you realize it costs 5, and so basically for 5 you have to remove a creature and you get an angel, and again your opponent can respond to this, so they can respond by burning your creature, and it just ends up being a 2-for-1 again instead of you getting an angel. I mean, you can play at the end of your opponent's turn. It just seems like a very clunky card to me. I mean, you are getting a nice 5/5 angel out of it, but I feel like there's better things. Yep, okay, this guy's kind of automatic. A nice low-end early threat, and he's going to gain you some life to hopefully put you ahead a little bit, especially if you're playing against those Ruby players. Deals damage to the champion, create a Savage Raider and put it into play. This guy I like for the deck, even though he's not a human, so I actually really like this guy because he's going to put lots of pressure on your opponent. He's unique, so let's go with 2 of him right now. Wrath Seeker, Rage, gets permanent +2/+0 when it attacks for 3. Okay, that's pretty good. I mean, I do like that. That seems pretty good. Battles opponents and troop. Then, if that troop is dealt fatal damage this way, transforms into a High Cleric, and the High Cleric is your cards deal double damage. So you have to get there first. It's unique. I mean, this is another one you might play in the sideboard, possibly. I'll go ahead and throw it. We'll throw her on the sideboard right now. Opposing troop, then if that troop failed damage. Yeah, so it's very, you have to get it to happen first for her to transform. She has a nice 4/4 body for 5, but at that we might do better with other things. Sword Trainer seems okay. We'll just go ahead and throw 2 right now. Sniper, maybe like a 1 or 2 of. We'll throw 2 for now. Equal to the player under your control gains +1/+0. So this is our Inspire trigger. There's not going to be a lot that's going to be greater than this, though, in the deck, unless you're ramping. So this guy may actually get pulled for some better things. Sniper Gawain, their player deals and equal to the target's troop. Now this is good, because this is that giving us that 2-for-1. Whenever this troop enters play, equal to, it's... So this is the combo between these two. If you can play this Sword Trainer and then play this guy, where X is this troop's power. So just these 2 cards, as long as you've got the Sword Trainer first, it's very conditional, and then you play this guy, you can zap something for 4. Seems decent, but the cost again is going to be a little bit prohibitive for me. Savage Raider attacks each turn if possible. I kind of still want to have those defenders. That's going to be more, I'd say, aggressive red deck. Pyromancer, the turn to play under their control, it gets permanent +1/+1. Now this guy I like. This guy's a must for this deck, because she's low cost, and there's going to be tons of stuff that's going to be 2 or more. So I think the key with Inspire is going to be playing with cards that there's a ton of. This guy doesn't really work for me at all in here. He's a big 8/1. He's got crushing speed, but you know, hopefully your opponent would just jump him off, and then he might deal a lot of damage. But this isn't. We really want to have a decent amount of guys in play that are playing off of each other. I mean, I guess he gets all the Inspire triggers, because Inspire, it deals with the cost. I mean, it's interesting, maybe as a top end. I don't know. I think there are better things for 5. Ragefire, this is an obvious pick. Would definitely play 4 of these. Anyone who's playing Ruby right now, if they're playing Ragefire at all, they're probably playing 4 of it. It's like a 4-0. Even though it costs 2 Ruby threshold to play, so it's going to be maybe a little bit more clunky in this deck, because we're going to be more in the Diamond threshold. Mortal Strike, deal 3 damage to target champion, and bury all troops from that 3 cards of their deck. Deal 3 damage to target opposing champion, bury all troops the top 3 cards of their deck. Yeah, this isn't really doing it for me, because this says you can't actually kill creatures with it. Yeah, and you can basically, it's more of a psychological card, and it costs so much. This is just not happening. 3 damage to the face for 5 is not that good. I mean, Lava Axe from Magic is somewhat better than this, because it deals 5 damage to the face, and I've actually had, in a limited setting, I've had someone Lava Axe me to the face to finish a game out, which is pretty embarrassing, to be honest. When this troop deals damage, create a warbot, put it into play. No, we aren't really dealing with warbots. Alexander's an obvious choice here. He's got speed, he's got Inspire. He is unique, so playing maybe 3 of him. Of course, Legionnaire is going to probably be our top end over the other guy, because he just does more for us. He sweeps the field. He is not unique, so we could play 4 of him, maybe. Yeah, so giving all of our stuff haste to just push through more damage seems really ridiculous to me. Inferno is probably not going to work for us, because we're not going to be gaining a lot of life and pushing through damage that quickly. We want to take over the board state with high quality cards, and we're not going to really be like super aggro like the what do they call the all the Shin Hair, where we have just try to have more dudes than our opponent. X damage divides you choose among any number of target troops or champions. X equals numbers of artifacts. We don't have artifacts. Burn to the ground is an obligatory 1-of to end the game, I'd say. Burn is probably going to be a 2, possibly a 3, depending on metagame, but we'll go ahead and throw 2 on the sideboard right now, and we can fiddle with that later. Zealot can't block. He's got speed. interesting. I like things that can block. I need to have things that can do double duty. I mean, if I was going to go all in, maybe this guy and the other guy, but I don't think I want to do that. Sacrifice a troop, deal 2 damage to a troop without flight, and each champion. Play a non-resource. If the second non-resource card is played this turn, put a troop from your graveyard into your hand. Play second. If it is the second non-resource card you played. It's interesting. It would be difficult to play 2 cards in one turn that late, because you're going to be casting this on 5, and you'll probably be out of cards in your hand anyways. The Bot Factory. When an artifact droop, we're really not playing that. Volcan is not really going to work for us. Turreted Wall, Time Bug, not really going to work for us. Shrine is possible. That's a possibility. This gives me kind of an Anthem effect, and it kind of like does other things for the deck, because we're playing a lot of creatures that it's not like a ton of, again, like a lot of Shin Hair. This is giving that +1/+1 can edge out some things on the low end. So up 2, maybe 3 of these. Gives us some charges to give us some more dudes, possibly, for each resource we have. Ruby Lance, I don't especially like. Maybe we'll throw some on the sideboard right now. But because we're in 2 colors, very often we're not going to get the value out of this. We might deal 2 damage with it when we have 5 resources in play, for instance. So that's really not going to give us a ton of things. I feel like we have enough removal right now anyways. Judgment. We talked about it being a sweep. It really is not. We have the sweep in Gwaine, but I just want to real quick talk about Judgment here. To me, it's not a great sweep. Destroy all cards with less than the highest cost amongst cards you control, for the control player at least. Because for me to sweep someone out, I want to have nothing in play and get as much value as possible. If I have to sweep out my own cards, I am giving myself negative card advantage at that point. So at the cost of 6, it really seems steep. Plus, I'm going to have to commit some cards to get it to work properly. I really don't like it. I don't find it to be a viable sweep. And in Magic, there are cards that are sweeps. They're just like this. They're not viable. One of the most recent ones I can think of is one that says, destroy all cards and each player sacrifices all their creatures in play except for 1. Well, sometimes, a lot of times actually, your opponent has only 1 creature in play, or if they do have 2 creatures, the 1 creature that that they're going to save is better than yours. So, that again was another example of a non-viable sweep, and I think that really this one is really going to be not very playable. Cooking Pot. Deal 1 damage. We're not really playing artifacts. General's Tent. Let's get this. Oh man, that's very small. Okay, I'm going to move this over here so we can read it better. I guess it's going to. Okay. Maybe can it. Oh, it's not going to. There we go. Nope. Yep. Yep. There we go. Alright, so secretly choose one of the following plans: assassination, invasion, or trap. It's a very flavorful card. Preparation counter, 3 preparation counters. This is just too much. Create 3 war box. Yeah, this is basically a robot card, so yeah, we're not going to play that. Start your turn, transform as artifact, shapeshifter. No. Charge your champion. Not really, because we've got some nice 1-drops. Anyways, the Chaos Keys, we'll go ahead and throw the obligatory 1 into the deck right now, and we'll put a couple on the sideboard for catch-all. Soul Marble, we've talked about that. That's really not going to be that great. This is another one where it kind of builds up and is supposed to do well for us. Rose Lion, not really that great. Protectorate, Clergyman is a solid 3/2 for us, which can block, and it gives us Inspire triggers, which will pump our guys. Princess Victoria, I talked about her a while back. I had 4 in my other deck, but I feel like this deck is really asking for like 2. The nice thing is that on turn 1, you can play your resource, play your 1-drop, and play Princess Victoria right away. So which you would probably play first. Well, no, you wouldn't play her first, because her Inspire is going to go for 3 drops and more to give them that life drain. Cosmic Elder is really not going to work for us. Legionnaire may be a one-of, but probably not, because Gwaine is just so good. Mariner is pretty good. As a 1-drop, pretty solid. He's going to go ahead and inspire all our stuff and make it a little bit better. Oh, it looks like I'm getting some lag here now. Oh boy. Do I have to reload the page? I hope not, because I really don't want to have to pick all this stuff anymore. Moving on, I guess while that's loading. I had King Gabriel in my other deck. I probably won't put him in here. 7 just seems like it's just too high to go for any type of aggro type of deck. Charge is a quick action. This is going to probably be better in draft than it is going to be in constructed play. Gives your guy +1/+1, so it's a combat trick. It costs 2, which seems, I don't know, maybe a little high. Maybe if it did something else like first strike, that would be worth the 2 to me. Blessing of the Fallen is obvious that because we're running off of so many Inspire triggers. Oh no. Yeah, I'm thinking I'm going to have to reload the page, and that's going to be mean. Blinding Light, I'm not really especially liking that one. Aspirant, maybe, but I feel like he's more of a control card. I mean, he's a 3/4. It's not going to even pull it up. I'm taxing the site too much. There's too many people on. Alright, I'm going to reload this real quick. Let's reload the site, and hopefully I won't lose too many of my cards. Hey, there's Botero. I think that the whole site is kind of crashing. Oh, it looks like it saved most of it anyways. Alright, awesome. Yes, children screaming. That's what you get with my podcast. No other podcast can claim that. You know, that's the deck. Okay, awesome. So we can go back. It's actually, it did save. It's kind of, I guess it saves the deck as I go. So there's no actual button to save. It just saves as I go. So it might have been in the middle of saving when I was trying to do that. Let's go all the way down. Where were we? We're past time by. I know we're past that. Okay, we were at Mariner. We were adding our Mariners. Yes, the Merry Mariner. Alright, King Gabriel, again, I don't feel like he goes in here. Charge is not a body, and it's not a good enough combat trick. It has to be a pretty ridiculous combat trick. Have you talked about Xenos Chosen? I don't think I have yet. Is that... I have to look. I think it's going in alphabetical. No, it's not even going in alphabetical order. We talked about Blessing of the Fallen. We got to add that. I might have talked about it. Let's go back up and see if we can find it. I'm going to go ahead and let's just go all the way back up to the top. Sound effects. I know everything's going to be a lot smaller and virtually unreadable for you guys, so I'll pull up the card when I find it. Xenos Chosen. Maybe if I just type it in. I am not seeing it. Good best card in the game. Oh, is this that one that's like a silly card? There's no way to search. Let's Xenos. It's probably not even in these colors. You're just having me go on a wild goose chase right now, aren't you? You tricky little guy. Alright, we're not going to worry about that. I think I remember this card, and it's a silly card. We're going to go back to the deck here. Alright, so what have we got in the deck? So we look at our curve right now as we're building this deck. Oh, you know what? Did I have my resources? I didn't even add resources. See? Got to go back. We got to have resources. Resources are important. Alright, there we go. I wonder if I put in Chosen. Ah, there we go. There it is. Xenos Chosen. Yeah, this guy, yeah, he kind of doesn't fit our colors, so. Thanks for pointing that out. Alright, moving on. We need to put some resources in here, so the obligatory 4 Shards of Fate need to come in here. And down here we've got our ruby shards. I'm not sure how many I'm going to put in here, so I'm just going to put in 10. Or we just need to get them on the thing right now. I'm sorry for all the crying in the background. It'll go away soon. It can't last forever. Eventually they get tired. Alright, so let's do that. Scroll all the way back up, go back to our deck. So, what have we got? How many cards have we got? Right now we've got 86 cards in our deck, not really doing our resources at all. Let's just judge for, let's go ahead and put those 10 resources on each of these so we can get a better feel for the deck. Actually, we'll go ahead and go 23 resources right now, as that is the magic number of magic numbers. And 95 cards is what we've got to whittle down here. We also have a sideboard which has a couple of cards. So some of these cards, if you really like them enough and you really want to try them out, sometimes what you could do is just throw them on your sideboard if you had extra space and you're not sure. That way you can sign them in and be like, oh, I want to try this out, especially if you're winning. I mean, to see how you feel about it, and maybe it'll make the main deck the next week. So that's another thing you can do with your sideboards, especially when you're playing maybe more casual tournaments. So first things first, we're going through looking at our curve. We've got a 6-drop up here. That is that guy that counts all the humans in our deck. We really don't have a lot of humans to begin with. I don't like pushing the curve too far. I'd like to get rid of this 6-drop. So I think that's going to be the first cut we're going to make there, because we're really not going to worry too much about humans being mostly humans in this deck just to play the one card, and he's not going to see play that often. He's not. I mean, he could win us a game here or there. Again, this guy counts every 3 humans, and that becomes his power and toughness permanently for the game. If there was some sort of a ramp deck in the future which plays tons of humans for some reason, or human resources, then I could see this guy being decent in that setting. But right now, as far as the aggro-y type of deck that we're running, I don't feel like he fits in this one at all. In fact, in the other deck where I was mono diamond, he probably didn't really fit in that one either. He was kind of just a one-of, just for the lulz. Gawain, I think I'd love to have 4 of them. I think we're going to go down to 3, just because if I were to draw 2 or 3 or 4 in my opening hand, and my opponent's playing a really fast burn deck, I mean, I have to throw that hand back. I really do. He's going to be a nice top end. He's going to be a card I want to have mid to late game. So typically the rule is, what does he do? Okay, Legionnaire of Gawain is going to sweep out the board to our opponent when we have for every card that inspires him. So we want to play tons of inspire cards that are going to add to the damage he deals when he comes into play. But it only deals it to our opponent, so it's a one-sided sweep, killing all of our stuff, killing all of their stuff. So that is pretty ridiculous. I mean, it's basically when you play him, if your opponent didn't counter him, it should be game. So again, when we're thinking about cards that we want to play, going back to when I used to watch the Magic podcast with Trick Jarrett, and I forgot who the other guy was, and they were talking about 4 ofs are cards you want to see in your opening hand. 3 ofs are cards you want to see maybe in your opening hand, but more mid to late game. And 2 ofs and 1 ofs are cards you want to see late game. So he seems like a mid to late game kind of card for me, so that's why I go with 3. He's not unique, so you could go up to 4 if you wanted to for some reason. We can throw 1 on the sideboard, a 4th copy on the sideboard if we really wanted to, but I feel pretty comfortable with having him at 3 because he's just such a house by himself. As long as you've got stuff in play and you didn't get swept out. Now, to help out with getting swept out, we also have our Blessing of the Fallen. This is going to be an obligatory card for every any deck that's going to be running Inspire. You're going to run this card because it's going to allow you to take those killed cards in your graveyard and make them do stuff. Even with your champion, it's going to, when you're playing this vanilla, you're taking Elizabeth's, when you've got this Adamantite Elite 3/3 in play, it's going to get inspired by everything that's in the graveyard. So it could have lifelink, it could get some more toughness, it could get, what else? What other kind of effects do we have here? It could get some more toughness from him. Princess Victoria could give it some health. The Clergyman could give it +1/+1 if you had, and it's every card in the graveyard. So yeah, this is a card that's probably a must-answer buff for your opponents. So speaking of buffs, let's go ahead and make some more cuts here. we've got this buff. This cannot go down from 4. So we need to think about the amount of bodies we have in play compared to the amount of buffs or cards like that that are not really going to be interactive. And we have our command towers in here. So we have Blessing of the Fallen, Command Tower, which is just going to give people a little bit better front end. Probably a lot better for a tokeny deck like a Shinhair. And we also considered, where is it? Where's the other one? I know you're here, or maybe it's not here. It's not here. I have to go back and get it. Oh wait, here it is. Yeah, Shrine of Prosperity. This is another buff type of card. No, need to have 4 towers. So right now, looking at the buffs, I like Shrine of Prosperity over the towers. And the reason why is because the tower is going to buff all of my troops, but I don't have a ton of troops anyways. I mean, I have a lot, but not like Shinhair has a lot. So we're going to go ahead and just pull all the towers. I think that's a pretty easy cut. It is dual color, so the tower, all these artifacts are easier to play, but that's going to go ahead and knock us down real easy right there. The Shrine is another buff card. We've already got 4 Blessing of the Fallen. Again, if we were to draw 2 Blessing of the Fallen and a Shrine, that's not too bad. If we draw 4 Blessing of the Fallen, obviously we're going to have to mull that back, but it's so good that that mull is okay with us. So having less mulls is what we're looking for here. So I think I'm going to take Shrine probably out of the deck. I mean, I could keep it at 1. We could throw it on a sideboard. It doesn't seem like it's going to do a ton. Charging our champion. Okay. Yeah, I don't think I'm feeling this card. So we're going to go ahead and pull that one. Okay, so we're now down to 87 cards. We need to cut another 27 cards out of the deck to make this happen for us. Again, most of the Inspire cards are going to be tough for us to pull. And then some of the late game bombs will be as well. So let's see, what else have we got that's not really Inspired? We got the Veteran Gladiator. Yeah, I really just don't like the fact that this guy doesn't block for us, so I think I'm going to go and pull the Gladiator. He does get inspired by other guys, but again, they have to be in play. He doesn't inspire the other people, so it doesn't really fit our strategy, so I think we're going to pull the Gladiator. That's an easy choice. Sapper's Charge is okay, but we aren't running a lot of artifacts. And we've got a nice amount of instant speed removal. Instant speed being we can cast it during combat or during our opponent's turn or anytime. When I say sorcery speed, classically that's talking about basic action speed, which means we can cast in our first main phase or our second main phase, which really restricts that card. Other cards that are sorcery speed are most troops, most of your enchantment type things, your artifacts. Basically, most of the things you cast are going to be first main phase, second main phase, but being able to cast things at the end of your opponent's turn is very important. Another thing to remember, and this is something I had to learn a lot early on when I started playing Magic, was if you have like a troop with instant speed, if it can be cast at instant speed, you cast at the end of your opponent's turn, that troop will come into play without summoning sickness the next turn, because it's been a full turn since it considers it to be a full turn since your last turn, so it will come in and it can attack. Of course, it can always block when it comes into play, unless it says it can't block. So Sapper's Charge, we'll remove those. That does our 1 point curve. We've got 8. We've got a total of 10 1-drops right now, which is pretty good. We like to have a good turn 1 and a turn 2 in a deck like this. The Aeronaut, I think I'm going to reduce this to 1. It is a nice house to have. It's going to get inspired by the other stuff. With Gawain, it's not unique. Actually, you know, we'll probably just move him to the sideboard, I think. Yeah, the Aeronaut, because it just seems like more of a control-y card, a very situational for the deck, and it's not going to do a lot for us if it's sitting in the graveyard. I mean, I guess you could one of it. It's got the Flight Evasion. It's a decent body for the cost considered to some of the other 3-4 flyers that we've seen for like 6. But yeah, we'll go ahead and just pull this guy out of the deck, and that's going to reduce our curve again, which is nice. So our 5-point curve, we've got six cards in the 5-point zone right now. Zoltag is this 4-point guy. This guy could get out of hand. I really like 2 of him. He seems a lot more worthwhile to have than the the other guy. So let's just leave him alone right now. This guy, not really doing a lot for us as far as he doesn't inspire anything. He gets inspired. He's more aggressive. He feels like he should belong more in the red deck. So let's go ahead and remove him. The Shield Trainer and the Sniper of Gawain, I really feel like these are it's just not enough for me. I mean, it's like a chance that it could happen. The Inspire is nice off of the Sword Trainer, so I could reduce that one to 1 right now. The Sniper is a 1-for-1, so I could reduce that to 1. Let's reduce both of these to 1. It's not going to happen very often anyways, and that, again, helps us pull our curve down some more. We're down to 78 cards now. Pyromancer's a house. This card you're going to want to have 4 of, period. This guy is definitely coming out. This guy just doesn't do enough for me. Ragefire is a little bit clunky, so I probably wouldn't actually I still probably wouldn't pull it, because it can deal a lot of damage. In fact, looking at that, we've got Burns to the Ground over here, and Ragefire, as you keep casting it, it can deal 2 the first time, then 4, then 8, and then 16 damage. I mean, then you're in the range of Burn to the Ground anyway, so that allows me to somewhat justify pulling Burn to the Ground. We're not going to have a lot of acceleration anyways. And so, Zoltog is not need. You don't have that many orcs. Yeah, we don't have a lot of orcs right now, but he's just such a house. Like, he's going to get the Inspire triggers off of everyone, and I get to put these Savage Raiders in when he deals damage. So in an open board state, where it is our opponent has just swept us out, if we top deck Zoltog and we still have Blessing of the Fallen, I know this is a lot of things to have in play at once. When we play Zoltog, he gets all the Inspire triggers, so he could get Lifelink, some more power and toughness and stuff, and then he swings in, and you could even have haste. He swings in, and now we get a Savage Raider, which also gets some of the Inspire triggers. Does he count for the ability? He doesn't have Inspire himself. That's why I think he's a 2-of. He's also unique, which makes him more of a 2-of for me. He might go down to 1. Chaos Key is probably going to be a little bit too clunky and slow for the main deck, so I think it's more of a sideboard option to deal with things. Protectorate Clergyman is a pretty solid 3 drop. I mean, for creating Raiders. Does he count for the ability? Right, so the Raiders will come into play, and it looks like the Savage Raiders have a cost of 1. So they will count for any Inspire triggers that count for a 1, which there's really only 1 I can think of right now, which means there'll be a 1. They'll get the back end of Mariner. That's what they'll get. That's most likely what will happen there. I still like Princess Victoria in here. You could 4-of her. She is a 1-2, so she's kind of a weak body. I mean, it's more like almost like having the effect is nicer than having the body in play. So I don't know. I suppose we could go down to 1 on her. She is a nice free body at the beginning of the game, though. It's more or less, if she's sitting in the graveyard and you've got your Blessing of the Fallen up, that's going to be nice to have. Burn is 2-point removal. It's pretty solid. Seems pretty solid right now. I mean, a lot of even the cards in this deck are 2 on the back end. I think when I was going through Guard Outrider, yeah, I really don't think this guy's a great fit for us at the 4 cost. I think there are better things at 4, so we're going to go and pull him. Because what do we have at 4 right now? We've got 3 cards at 4. We've got Zoltog, and he is way better than that guy. Way better for pulling those Inspire triggers and doing things for us. We've also got this Sword Trainer, which even Sword Trainer is, because he's got Inspire, is already better than the guy we just pulled. Living Totem's not going to get a ton of the Inspire triggers, but we can buff him, and he can get somewhat out of hand, or at least kind of, he is a threat. He's a decent threat to have out there. So I'd like to try to keep him around. He only costs the 1 threshold, which is nice. So where are we at? We're at 72 cards. We need to pull 12 more cards. We got to look at our curve. Our curve is at 23 right now. Alright, so what else? We have 12 more cards. This is always the toughest part, right? We like Lord Alexander, but we really like his effect. the most. So again, this might be one of those where we, how important is it for everything to have speed? So we'll pull him down because he's unique. Yeah, I think that right now the sword trainer and the definitely this guy is not making it for me. The sword trainer probably as well. Let's see. So we're looking pretty good here. What else have we got we can cut out of here? I really want to keep Legionnaire. I mean, we can maybe pull him down to 2 here. Shield trainer. Yeah, this is another one where I feel like the effect, the body's decent, but the effect is really what we want. So that puts me down 7 more cards. I could probably pull him down actually 1 more. Steadfast is nice to have. I mean, maybe, yeah, he's probably like the weakest card we have. The Steadfast is nice to have, but it's really not buffing our guys or killing anything. Can he create raise off his own damage? Oh. Yeah, so when an orc, so he is an orc. It doesn't say another orc, it says an orc deals damage. He can create more guys. The question was, when can he create orcs off of his own damage? Yes, he can. So by himself he creates orcs. He's probably asexual, you know, like Yoshi, you know, like Yoshis make more Yoshis, they're asexual. Just like plants. Some plants are asexual, they just make more plants. So we're not going to gain a ton of health. This guy feels pretty clunky. He doesn't have Inspire, so I think we pull the Righteous Paladin. I think that's a pretty easy cut right there. Even though he could get out of hand, we're really not doing a ton of life gaining. We're now down to 61 cards, which is exactly where we need to be. The 61st card being Lady Elizabeth Stewart. So look at the curve. We it would have been nice to have the 4 a little bit higher, but yeah, I mean, it looks pretty good to me right now. Yeah. You want Angry Birds? Okay, so moving on. So here's what we're going to do to figure out our curve. We're going to go through this and we're going to count it up together and do some counting exercises. From the visual, you can see it looks like these are counting cards. So we have 8 diamond cards here and 2 ruby cards there. We've got 4 diamond cards here and, or what we got? Yeah, 4 diamond and 8 ruby, and then we've got another. So this is just counting the total cards, which is good, but it's even better to count the actual icons. So that's what we're going to do. So we've got Living Totem here, and so that is 4 of those, so that's 4. We've got Scrivener, that's another 4, so that makes it 8. We've got Clergyman, so that's another 4, so that makes it 12. And then we're going to go to Princess Victoria. We've got 1 of her, so that makes it 13. Then we're going to count Kraken Mariner, which gives us another 4, so that makes it 17. And then we've got double threshold on this one, so we count that one, so we go 17 to 21, and then another 4 because we've got double. I just said 21, so it's 25. Public math, it's not good. So I'm going to type this in the chat so I can keep track of it. 25 diamond. 25 diamond. That's how many icons we have for our thresholds. Now we're going to go back and do it with ruby. And so looking at the ratios here, we've got 2 here, so that's times 2, so that's 4. We've got 1 here, so 4 of those makes 4 more, so that's 8. Ragefire, so we might actually have some more ruby than diamond in this deck. Double again, so we've got 4 of these, so that makes it 12 and then 16. Lord Alexander, we've got 2 of these guys, so that makes it 18. Luckily, Legionnaire of Gawain, this guy could have been a double threshold easily. We're at 18. That will put us up to 21, I believe. Yep, because we've got 3 of those guys. Burn, we've got 2 of these, so that'll make it 22. And so we've got, actually, we did come out behind. So there we go, 22 ruby. So that's what we've got here. We've got 25 diamond and 22 ruby. So that ratio is pretty close. I mean, it's almost a 1-to-1 ratio there. So I feel pretty comfortable right now with having it be the 9 ruby and the 10 diamond resources, especially with our curve where it is. You might consider going down to 22 resources, but given the way Hex again runs, you're probably good at 23. You could even go up to 24 if you wanted to run some of those cards that, especially like if you want to run the janky cards, that 4 and that 5 drop that work together that could kill a creature, but they just seem like very often, more often than not, they're not going to happen for you unless you're playing some sort of ramp, and that would put you into another color, which we don't want to do. Again, Shards of Fate, you need to have resources in your deck to actually get it to work. It doesn't work if that resource isn't in your deck. So if you were to splash in something. Let's go ahead and go to the sideboard here and look at some of the cards we have in here. So the Chaos Key, we pulled one of those from the main board, so we'll go ahead and plug that one up to 1. The Witch is definitely a sideboard card, I'd say, for this deck. Gaining life, I mean, it's probably not going to be a huge strategy, so you might... It's probably not going to be that important, so you probably go down to 2, maybe 3 or 2. It does have that Swift Strike, which is nice. It's 2 thresholds. It's going to be a little bit clunky to play. This guy is going to be a little bit more interactive for you. So if your opponent's playing lots of what are they called? Shin Hair. I keep forgetting the Shin Hair. Playing tons and tons of Shin Hair. Could you do one of each and then fill out the mana needs to Shards of Fate? So yes, you could do one of each, and then the Shards of Fate would, as long as it's in your deck to begin with, that's what Shards of Fate checks. So the question is, could you do one of each, going back to the deck here, could you do one of each resource in your deck and get Shards of Fate to come into play and give you a charge for any resource? Yes, you could, but you need to have one of each resource in your deck. So you could play like primarily like one color, like was it Wild would probably be obvious because typically green is growth, and then you could play like one of each of the other ones and splash in a couple of cards, and then when those cards come up, hopefully you've got your Shards of Fate to give you the charge you need. Of course, in that situation you would probably play a lot of cards with a threshold of 1, but that's somewhat risky. We need a little bit more fixing for me. I need to have like another 4 cards that can fix, and it would be nice to have, I think it's more flavorful to have dual color cards than it is to have a card that's kind of a catch-all like the Shards of Fate, which is more or less, Shards of Fate is basically, what is it called, it comes into play tapped. I'll remember it in a couple minutes. There's actually been 2 cards that have been printed there, the exact same as Shards of Fate in Magic. Anyways, moving back to Tekla, I'll remember in a minute. So this again would be great versus Shin Hair, I think. So this is a definite side in versus Shin Hair. You might replace Gwaine with her. Maybe, I don't know. You probably keep them both actually. She's pretty expensive. She got the double threshold, and then she also transforms in this. She won't be able to kill things anymore. So she can really only kill one thing, but I guess it's just a little bit more removal. So maybe a 2 of in the deck on the sideboard, which is what I had, so I felt it's pretty good. Burn, we took those off of the main board, so we're going to pump that back up to 4, if I can. More, you can't have that many cards. Oh wait, maybe I did keep them. Did I keep them? I kept the burns? Oh, I did keep the burns. Okay, so that's fine. We can put up more if we need to deal with the early stuff. Ruby Lance, let's look at what's the maximum we could do with Ruby Lance for each threshold we have. So another interesting thing about this game is that Shards of Fate is going to give us thresholds, so that counts as 4, and then we've got another 9, so 13 is the maximum we could have. But more often than not, we're going to be wanting to cast a lot of these diamond cards. I mean, it seems okay to target troop. I mean, the thing is, it doesn't deal it to the face. A card like this, I really feel like it should have been able to deal it to the face as well. And when I say to the face, to the actual other opposing champion or the opposing player. So let's look at our sideboard now. We're only allowed 15 cards, So we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. We've got too many cards on our sideboard, so we need to cut one. That's a pretty obvious choice here at Ruby Lance, but really, you could probably cut all of these and we could find better cards. So let's go back one more time and just look through and see if there's anything else. Oh, well, there's an obvious choice, actually, I'm thinking of right now that's better than Ruby Lance. And this card, you could main deck it as removal, but I feel like the red removal is going to do a little bit more for you. And that is where, you know, let's just turn on the diamond. Duh. Lois. Right, so, where is it? It's basically pacifism. Where is it? Inner Conflict. Inner Conflict is a much better card. Deals with board states better. Yeah, it removes cards. It removes those huge creatures that are out of the range of our red spells. Much better card for our sideboard. So we're going to go ahead and put 3 of these on our sideboard. In fact, I'll probably end up putting 4. I can find room for 4. I'd prefer to have 4, I'd say. So let's pump that up to 4. We're going to remove Ruby Lance completely because it feels too clunky. It'd be better in a mono Ruby deck anyways, and then we can probably pull one of the Ember Witch and not be too hurt by that. Feelings shouldn't be too hurt there. So now we've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14. What did I do? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Never mind. We have 15 cards on our sideboard. Looks pretty good. So I will go ahead. This is already shared on the TCG browser and deck builder. You can look at it or make some critiques on it if you want. Diamond, Ruby, and Spire, 61 cards. So there you go. Start to finish, creation of a deck. Took me quite a while. I don't typically do podcasts this long, so I'm just kind of talk through a couple more things, transition on. So in the Hex community right now, we're seeing some different trends. One of the big ones I've seen recently, Hex rate of mercs. Someone asked on what do you call it, on Reddit. I'm considering throwing some more dough into Gax, but they want him for about $20. They feel like he's and they're basically Gax is a PvE card that is a PvE hero, or yeah, he's basically a PvE. He's a, what do you call him, he's a mercenary. Thing is with mercenaries, you got to level those guys up, and they go up to 20 levels. I've got Gax right here in front of me. I'll go ahead and, we'll just do it like this. This will be a little bit better, maybe not. No, that's not what I want. I want this scene where you can see me. So here is the Gax card that I got from going to the convention. You can see all of his abilities here, and you can see that each one of those abilities requires you to have charges. They're interesting, they're flavorful. It's going to be one of those things where it's like, I've got a Gax and I was there at the beginning, and it's going to be kind of more or less like gloating points more than I would say than maybe functionability. The other one that there was Portentio, and this was the one you had to earn by playing at least by getting at least 5 tickets. They're PvE champions, first of all. So there's going to be so many PvE champions. It's going to be very difficult for someone to own all of them and level all of them to 20. That's going to take a ton of time, and people will do it. I understand that's going to happen, but I feel like someone that really wants to spend more money on that and then is complaining about it, it's kind of like, well, it sounds like you really don't want to buy the card from someone. They did go to the convention. They had to spend the money to get there. They had to. It was $10 for Gax, and then you had to earn Portentio, so that's time investment. So looking at the going rates, I'm not going to pull up eBay, but if you can do this yourself. Gax, I'm seeing one for $50, another one for like $90, with a buyout of $120. Seems a little bit high for something that's a PvE champion for just simply like gloating rights. Portentio, I'm seeing one for $64 buy it now, or basically $65, and then another one for $80 or best offer. Yeah, again, remember, we're talking about PvE champions. You gotta level all these guys up, so that's I mean, I guess suppose you don't really have to. You can own them and they're still gloating rights, but that's the main thing. I mean, there's also some complaints before we went to the con because people said, well, this is supposed to be a game where I didn't have to leave home and I could still play professional tournaments. Well, again, these are PvE champions, which are more or less, they aren't even like amazing PvE champions. They're PvE champions that are flavorful and just kind of fun to have, fun to play. You know, they aren't going to be like the go-to PvE champions, I would say. The PvE champion you're going to want to play is probably the one that you're going to be leveling up and having all of your abilities on, that's putting special PvE cards in your deck that you're moving through a talent tree with. Moving on to some of the card spoiler from this week. We had this Battletech guy. This guy seems alright to me. Let's go ahead and zoom him in so you guys can see him a little bit better. I don't know if he's going to be very, I don't think he's going to be very PvP, but PvE seems pretty good. Puts those 2 worker bots into play. Very control league type of cards. He's going to lock your opponent down. They're not going to be able to use their creatures. Another thing you need to understand, this is the crux of control, is you need to be able to do things on your opponent's turn at the proper times. So when you're going to want to tap your exhaust your opponent's troop is as soon as they start their attack phase, before they declare their attacks. Because if let's say that you have the 2 artifact troops and you're going to exhaust their champion on your turn, well, during their turn, the champion readies, or not the champion, the troop will ready, and that's not going to do you any good. So then you try to do it during their first main phase, and then they could have a reaction to it, so you could do it at the end of the main phase, I guess. But the best time to do it is right at the start of the attack phase. If you forget and you let them declare their attacks, and then you try to tap their guy down, their guy becomes exhausted, rather, and he's still attacking. So that really won't do you any good either. So you really got to be careful when it is that you're using cards like this, that you get the timing down and you know when it is that you're supposed to tap your opponent's stuff down. You really got to pay attention. Control is supposed to be the more thinking person's game, where it is that you need to be able to make decisions quickly, and it's going to be a little bit more technical. So I really like the card. I like the direction it's going. The cost is a little bit prohibitive. I don't know if it's necessarily going to be that bomb that you're going to want to play at the top of your curve. It's very easily removed as a 2 toughness. It would have been nice to have him at least as a 1/4. I think he could have been just as good. Because it still would have been in controlling, it would have been less removable for all the red cards, all the ruby cards that are out there. But looking at him from a PvE standpoint, throwing these gloves and this faceplate on him is going to be pretty crazy. Exhaust an opposing troop, create worker bots. I'll just exhaust your guys and make more bots to exhaust your guys, and make more bots to exhaust your guys. I mean, it's an infinite loop, which is pretty, I mean, not really infinite, but it's going to happen more and more, and eventually you're going to take over the board state. Seems like a really good card to have, especially in a raid. You got the one guy playing some sort of blue, or rather sapphire dwarves, and everyone else is kind of protecting that guy, and then once he gets this guy into play, he just kind of takes over the board state. Which, again, there's really not a lot we can talk to with PvE, because they're going to do things that are outside of combat damage. They're going to do things that are outside of typical gameplay in general. The next one is Faceplate of the Tech Overlord. When you exhaust this opposing troop with 10 or more attack this way, create slaughter gear. And so this isn't going to happen as often. This is probably going to be less popular than the gloves for PvE. It is rare, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe there's a ton of things in PvE that are going to be 10 attack or more. It says an opposing troop. So it has to be one troop with 10 attack or more. I mean, how many of those are there? There might be a ton in PvE. We don't know. But when that happens, you get this guy, which says exhaust another target artifact you control, and it transforms into a War Hulk. So that's going to be this guy, which is basically a 5/5 with Crush, which is like trample, so he's going to trample over some damage. So he takes those worker bots and makes them into these. And the flavor text, I love the flavor text on this. The dwarves put so many hexling gems into a single robot factory that it gained sentience and went insane. So it turned into this. So it is from what do you call it? From I need to actually pull up my chat because I'm sure you guys are talking to me. I can check out your dwarves. Yeah, you want to check out my dwarves? I think you're just joking. So yeah, moving on. I'm sorry I missed some of the chats there, but yeah, he's gonna. It's just a really good card, I think, for PvE more than PvP. Robots you control have Rage 2, must attack each turn if able. Probably less so. I mean, it's a legendary gear. You made a dwarves deck? Okay. Botero, if you forward me that dwarves deck, I will check it out next week for next week's segment. I do take requests. We are running. I'm running over on my time quite a bit. If you don't hear the children crying, I do have to read stories pretty soon, and they do expect those stories. Some of the other things they talked about, they went over some flavor for the orcs. I read through this. This very much felt to me like Klingons from Star Trek, very honor-bound. Things where they also, I forget, it was in Voyager, there was an honor society where they actually captured creatures and they would fight them, and there was an episode where they actually captured the crew and they made a giant holodeck, and then they would fight the members of the crew, kill them, and then the doctor kept bringing them back to life so they could kill them again. So these guys actually go out and hunt things and find massive creatures. The funny thing is they're completely opposed to our Shinhair, to the Venin. And so if a Venin gets caught by them, it's kind of like dishonor for them. So very, very interesting. We'll forward it. I'll have you forward it, Botero, after the after this podcast, or you could. I don't know if you can link it in chat. You can link it in chat as well, and I'll be able to access it. We had, of course, more updates today. I encourage everyone to go and check out the Dragon Lord dinner. Extra points if you can find me there. I was there. A very brief second, you'll see me in the frame. Yeah, we've got the princess story. What's the story of Princess Corey? There was a guy that showed up and did cosplay as Princess Corey. He was so Princess Corey that I actually came up behind him, and I didn't know exactly what Corey looked like in real life, and I was like, "Hey, Corey!" And he turned around and it was not Corey. So that was kind of embarrassing for me. I don't know. He probably doesn't even remember. You know, that weekend was such a blur. And then it goes through some of the other things. So until next week, this is Errantsquire signing off, saying God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there. I will eventually be doing giveaways after Alpha is over. I don't want to give things away without us knowing what they are. I thank Botero and Lonarth for coming into the channel and asking me some questions. If you guys have any more questions for me, real quick, as I'm closing out, give you guys a couple minutes. Beyond that, I'll just go over, you know, coming into the my website. If you guys are on it right now, you can see Hex TCG Pro. We do our podcast at 8 o'clock on Thursdays, 8 o'clock Central Time. 8 o'clock Central Time. Also, I believe Shaggy TV has started to do a Hex basically show on Tuesdays. Of course, my show is on Fridays at 8. You know, you can also check out Dusty. He's a pretty high-end player, Mr. John Tata, who runs our website, and that is pretty much it. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. So yeah, we'll just go ahead and sign out here, and I will say God bless you and your families, and try not to rage too much out there.